Hey everybody, it's Alexander Dahl with Manifest Brutality once again. So I have another interview ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and get into that one. There's still about a dozen left to get through. So yeah, we'll just keep putting them out as we get them ready. All right, here you go. Bye. All right, so I'm currently on the phone with Dane. He's another musician that reached out to me about the current interview series going on. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the opportunity to introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. This is Dane Christensen. And the band, I guess I'll be plugging, is Barrel by Night. That's my involvement as far as writing music and playing guitar goes.
Awesome. So I always like to start with questions about how you first got into music and, what was it about music that really kind of set a bug in you that made you kind of feel like you wanted it in your life?
Yeah, so I come from a pretty musical family. I got a bass when I was 12 for Christmas from my parents. And I know, like, on long car rides, my favorite song would be Michael Jackson's Beat It. I always just loved the guitar solo on that, and it just kind of got me excited. And when I was a preteen, I discovered POD's Southtown. Are you familiar with POD?
Definitely.
Yeah. And I was always the type, too, that, like, when I found a band, I just obsessed over a band for, like, a year straight. That'd be, like, all I'd listen to. So I know, like, when I was in fifth grade, I just knew, like, I fell in love with that overall vibe, and I would just listen to POD nonstop. I had a like-minded friend show me Linkin Park when I was in sixth grade, and I just kind of fell more in love with the overall intensity of that music. And he's like, "Okay, well, if you like that, then you'll like this." And he's kind of kept pushing and raising the bar. So like in seventh grade, I was obsessed with Disturbed. In eighth grade, I was obsessed with Slipknot. In ninth grade, I kind of like on my own found Lamb of God. And then 10th grade onward, just kind of had a feel for finding what I liked. And to this day, my three favorite albums are Colors from Between the Buried and Me, Nocturnal from the Black Dahlia Murder, and From Mars to Sirius from Gojira. And love going to live shows. I actually collect ticket stubs just as kind of a sentimental thing.
Sure.
And there's the Twin Cities metal band, After the Burial. I shouldn't even call them Twin Cities anymore. They're internationally known now, but they started in the Twin Cities. And I've seen them 25 times. And the artist Devin Townsend was a huge inspiration for me wanting to kind of gravitate a little bit away from bass guitar and wanting to get into more like guitar and vocals. And I've always loved writing music on the free online program Tux Guitar since I was in high school. And it was through my wife's social circle I met Johnny LeDuc, who's the singer for the band In Search of Solace. And then connected with him, connected with his guitarist Nick, show them the kind of things I write, and we're able to actually go to the studio together. Then, like, I record with Nick, I go to his house and just kind of drag over the files for like the drums and the bass that I program, and I perform the guitars, and that's how Barrow by Night was born. So that's kind of my long-winded way of giving you the crash course of everything else.
Sure. So we're going to go back a little bit. And so when you first kind of identified your passion for playing an instrument, what was kind of your immediate steps into taking the process to learn how to write with it and to become more of like, a writer rather than like a consumer of music?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The first thing I did when I got the bass guitar was just by ear, kind of dinking around with the different intervals and figuring out, okay, if I start on this open string and then just use this fret, and just figure out like what those different intervals sound like. I by ear was pretty quickly able to pick up the James Bond theme, like that main guitar James Bond theme.
Sure.
Just to kind of figure out like, okay, so that's what these intervals sound like. And you kind of take off from there. It's like, okay, doing open string first fret sounds pretty heavy and angry. Doing open string third fret sounds minor. Doing open string fourth fret sounds happier, etc. And you just kind of take off from there. You just kind of just figure it out as you go. And a lot of it could just be trial and error, or like guess and check to be like, okay, I know what things I like that sound together. You just kind of, without really knowing music theory, you just start kind of like accidentally finding music theory.
Sure.
A lot of it could just be like muscle memory, just exploring the fretboard, figuring out what you like and what you don't like. And then just kind of regurgitating your influences, being like, hey, I know what the kind of music I like listening to, so that I know what I like to play. And you just kind of find on the fretboard where it exists and you make it work.
Awesome. I was about to ask a similar question about how much would you say, the music that you found a passion for had an influence in the way that you wanted to write?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the only reason I even mentioned those three bands or those three albums that to this day are still hugely influential on me. I listen to them all the time. I'm always drawing on those for inspiration. Like Black Dahlia, I'm obsessed with their guitar work, and Gojira just hits so hard when you listen to their music. And then when you listen to like Colors by Between the Buried and Me, there's that album is just oozing with creativity and so many different directions, so many like unconventional song structures. It was almost just kind of like any idea goes with like, when they wrote that album. And so yeah, and that's kind of how I approach my songwriting. I guess I'm working on an album right now that I would consider more like progressive metal. But yeah, I try to let my influences really shine or like wear them on my sleeve when I'm writing music. So hopefully, if you like the bands I like, then hopefully you'll like the music I'm creating.
Sure, definitely. So you did mention that at some point, while you were learning and perfecting your bass craft, that you additionally wanted to pick up guitar. What would you say were kind of like the motivating factors to make that transition or the addition? And what did you find, creatively lacking that you couldn't express through the bass that you felt guitar would be a good fit?
That's a super duper good question, because I was given a bass just as a free Christmas gift when I'm 12 years old. And I'm still kind of in those formative years figuring out my path and like what I like musically. And everything I listen to is just so guitar driven. And I listen to rather like technical guitar parts. Like I'd listen to Dream Theater. I'd be listening to John Petrucci just melt faces. And so it's like I'm trying to learn things and try to like keep up. And you find yourself really just pushing your own limits. And everything I was doing on a bass was coming from like a metal electric guitar player. I'd be doing a jazz bass solo, but all my influences are metal electric guitar players.
Sure.
And only just because like the bass was what I was given as a gift, then it's like that's just kind of what I stuck with. And I did that for about a dozen years, like through high school and college, etc., and gigging in the Twin Cities afterwards. And it was a conversation with my wife where she was like, well, Dane, if you like metal, you like guitar, like nothing's stopping you from just getting a cheap guitar and starting to put pen to paper and start just doing what you actually want to do. So I was like, all right, if nothing's stopping me, let's do it. And so it was more so like after college when I was then like knowing my wife a little bit more and everything, where it's like, okay, let's try to actually do that.
Sure, definitely.
So she actually bought me my first electric guitar and then had to put up with me practicing it. So
that's very cool. I played drums for like 20 years, and then just a few years ago started picking up guitar. And by no means would I say I'm any good at it, but I can definitely lay down a track or two. And it was just like within the past year, I was like, I can I figured this thing out enough where I bet I could actually put bass down too. And so that's kind of like what I've been trying to do with the people that I write with. And so, like, that transition from incorporating new instruments into the ability to create with them is something that is very powerful for the individual artist.
Yeah. I bet you, too, you being a drummer and then trying to lay down bass and guitar tracks, too, I bet you've got a different sort of like perspective or context where like you can write really hard hitting rhythms. Where like I know there's some songs like Gojira songs that will start from a drum pattern or like a polyrhythm or something, and then the guitars come afterwards, like on top of that. That could be a really, really cool approach.
Sure, definitely. So back to you, of course. So once you kind of had the point where you could play guitar, you felt that you were confidently expressing yourself with it, how did you kind of go about deciding like the content and the voice that you wanted to have, and then how did you go about recording your music?
Yeah, I definitely want to emulate my influences. So again, to like Black Dahlia Murder, Gojira, Between the Buried and Me, Devin Townsend, The list goes on, obviously, but like I wanted to write music where I sound vaguely similar, like I belong in the room, kind of like I want to sound like I could be on the bill for one of those tours or bands or what have you. Just because like yeah, that's what you like, that's what you love, you want to follow that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of organically is what was the most natural thing for me. Like when I started writing music on guitar, it's like, yeah, you're going to be a product of your environment. If that's all you listen to, then that's just kind of organically what comes out of you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Um, and so, yeah, I think my overall mission statement was, okay, I have been writing music digitally on that free online program called Tux Guitar since I was in high school. I've always
Mm-hmm.
just kind of had a practiced craft of just being able to plug tab into a laptop. And so if I actually know the people to get in touch with that could bring it to life in a realer sense, then yeah, I want to make that happen. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm so extremely fortunate that I got in touch with Johnny LeDuc and then got in touch with Nick from In Search of Solace,
Mm-hmm.
where I can actually have those programmed files that I write on my laptop being like, hey, if I can export the drums and the bass as MIDI files, you drag those into Pro Tools, and then I track the guitar parts that I wrote on top of all that,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, we can have a song. So I'm very lucky that I know those guys. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
Barrel by Night would not exist without them. So, In Search of Solace is definitely a band to check out too.
Definitely.
I'm gonna plug. I'll plug the crap out of that band just because, like, honestly, I have to thank them for so much,
For
and
sure.
they're awesome, absolutely awesome guys.
Absolutely.
Um,
So you kind of did touch base on what my next question was going to be, and that was, once you did kind of find the people that you're comfortable writing with and you're comfortable sharing that creativity with, aside from, just giving them your tracks, how did you kind of approach like the writing session of it? Did they kind of, contribute more as like session musicians, or were you more interested in like a collaborative input?
this is gonna sound really self-absorbed, but it's 100% me. So, I'm just one boring married pudgy guitarist sitting with
Mm-hmm.
a guitar and a laptop just making it happen.
Mm-hmm.
I write the drum parts, the bass parts, the guitar parts, the vocal parts. I write all the lyrics, came up with the band name.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally like my brainchild. I do 100% of all of it. And that's I'm able to because of technology today,
Mm-hmm.
where like I can program the drums and the bass, and then you can have like real life samples with like various drum packages, like Superior Drummer is one,
Mm-hmm.
that you can just like have in Pro Tools. Like when
Mm-hmm.
Pro Tools recognizes your MIDI file, then it can just link all the drum samples.
Yep.
Boom! Now you've got like a pseudo drummer playing your stuff. Same with bass. So then all I have to do is then just track the physical guitar parts myself on
Mm-hmm.
top of it all, and then on the first album, I was fortunate enough to have Johnny LeDuc do all the vocals, all the screaming and everything, because that's his forte. Like he's the maestro of screaming in his band,
Mm-hmm.
which I couldn't do in 1,000 years. So I was fortunate enough to have him be a part of that. I just wrote the lyrics. I mapped out like the cadency of like, hey, like I want you to do like a high scream here, a low scream here,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And then just let it rip. And he's amazing at what he does. He was able to do it, and boom, it was awesome. Um, Whereas on the second record, I thought to myself, if Barrow by Night is ever something that's gonna like take the stage and it is my brainchild, then like I
Mm-hmm.
want to. I can't kidnap him from his band, be like, hey, now you're gonna be my permanent vocals. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I gotta learn to sing, I gotta do it myself, and like make it more like I'm the guitarist and singer for my band. So
Mm-hmm.
so then I did the vocals on the second album, Sunless Passage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's gonna be the formula for this third one I'm working on here right now too.
Well, that's very cool. That sounds very exciting. So what are, some really important moments that have happened to you surrounding music, whether it be in the studio, going to a show, playing a show, just something important that happened while you were participating with music?
Yeah, when I was in high school, my senior year, I participated in the talent show with a bass solo, and I won, which was cool in and of itself. But one of the
Nice.
perks of winning the talent show was you got to play at the next school, Pep Fest,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to a bigger high school, Centennial High School. So yeah, like my graduating class was over 500,
Hmm.
and we were one of like the smaller classes. So like if you factor in how many folks are packed into that gymnasium, plus the staff and faculty, minus the kids that were too cool for school that would skip out Pep
Hmm.
Fest,
Hmm.
I have to imagine there's probably close to a couple thousand, maybe 1,500 folks packed in that gym. I'm not sure, but that was pretty awesome just to kind of feel that intensity of like that many eyes paying attention to whatever your crappy 18-year-old bass solo ideas.
Hmm.
And then I was able to I played that same bass solo as part of an audition when I went to Concordia College, and they gave me the full like the largest music scholarship amount you're able to get for that. So that was cool. And by playing bass at Concordia, they would just like they'd have certain events they put on, and one of them was like their day of percussion where they had the drummer Chester Thompson come
Hmm.
in, who has played with like Genesis, Phil Collins, Weather Report, Frank Zappa. Like he's played with a bunch of folks.
Hmm.
And so I got to play the Genesis tune Cinema Show with him.
Hmm.
So I guess that'd be kind of more of like a claim to fame, just kind of like my 10 seconds of fame there, being able to
Sure.
actually play with a cool professional drummer.
Sure, definitely. So I want to give you the opportunity to put out the links anywhere people can click on your stuff and take a listen to what you're working on.
Yeah, I use DistroKid that spits my music everywhere.
Hmm.
So no matter if you're using Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, YouTube, whatever, Barrow by Night is out there. So whatever you use to listen to it, honestly, I just want people to care and just check it out.
Hmm.
If you're a metalhead, if you like the bands I like, I'm hoping you'll like Barrow by Night and just add it to your playlist.
Sure, definitely. So I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So a message that you feel kind of resonates with you.
Yeah, I mean, musically, I'd say album three is coming. If you like what you hear, beyond that, man, it's a big platform to be on. I don't know. We should all just get along.